let's go over the 5 steps you'll need to prepare your music composition portfolio for college. Now, you probably already know that this portfolio represents a collection of relatively short pieces that demonstrate your present ability as a composer. This is by far the most important part of your application to any university program in music composition. But don't worry, most programs are not looking for the most polished masterpieces that they've ever heard. From my experience, what interests most composition faculty is the potential that they hear rather than the finished product. So I advise you not to be overly critical at this stage about your compositional chops. Rather, spend your time focusing on actually completing the portfolio in a timely and organized manner.
Yes, go on.
So let's move on to what you should do first. Research which colleges you want to apply to and write down exactly what the requirements are. Make sure to be familiar with the general vibe of the composition faculty in terms of their aesthetic style. You don't want to be sending a portfolio geared toward film composition to a conservatory like Curtis or Juilliard. And conversely, you wouldn't necessarily send a more traditionally written portfolio to a film scoring program like the Berklee College of Music. Step 2. Now, no matter where you apply, most programs want to hear contrasting works, whether that means they are in a different aesthetic, tempo, or even as something as simple as instrumentation. Typically, they'll be asking for 3 to 5 pieces that shouldn't be more than 3 to 10 minutes each. Of course, this will vary from program to program, but generally speaking, you want to make sure that every piece you are writing matches the needs of all the programs you want to apply to. That way, you don't end up writing 7 or 8 pieces for absolutely no reason. Step 3. This may sound trivial, of course, but as we all know, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. This is especially true when your screeners don't have much time to look, much less listen to your entire portfolio. The first impression then is not going to be what your pieces sound like, but what your scores look like. In other words, how they are engraved. Most composition faculty are not going to be very happy seeing handwritten scores, so investing in a music notation software like Dorico, Sibelius, or Finale is a must. There is also a free music notation software that I've heard a lot of good things about called MuseScore. But generally speaking, I find the academic versions of Dorico, Sibelius, and Finale are quite affordable, especially if you're serious about composing. Now, just having access to one of these programs doesn't mean you magically know how to engrave, of course. You're going to need to learn how to use your chosen program to engrave your scores at a high enough level at this stage. To do this, I suggest going to your local library and see if they have any books on music engraving. You'd be surprised what some of these libraries have on the shelves. For example, there is a very popular engraving book called Elaine Gould's Behind Bars that I suggest you check out. Cross-check what she does with your scores, and your scores should look infinitely better. Step 4. Once you've engraved your scores, you're going to need to produce recordings that realistically emulate what you're trying to achieve. Now, while virtual instruments have gotten really good at approximating orchestral sounds, I really do recommend that you hire live musicians to record your portfolio. If you live within about 2 hours from a college that has a decent music program, you should be able to hire musicians from there that would be happy to record for you. You can use something like a Zoom H4n recorder to record the session. That way you don't need to have a big complicated setup to actually get a realistic sound from your ensemble. One of the musicians may already own something like that, which you can ask to use. Now, colleges don't expect you to have the most pristine recordings in the world, so something like that would certainly do the job. You don't need to go to some ridiculously high-end studio to do this. And last but not least, step 5. If you plan on applying this fall, I suggest you have your scores completely engraved and recorded weeks before Thanksgiving so that you have ample time to go over the rest of your application. For example, if you look at a school like Juilliard, you'll see that their application deadline this year is December 1st. And as you probably know by now, most of the deadlines are around that same time as well. Now, if you got to the end of this video, you might be wondering, well, Saad, where are your pieces that got you into the various colleges that you got into? Why can't we see any of those? Well, if you want to see a video like that, why don't you do me a favor and leave a like on this video and write a comment down below saying that you would like to see it. That way I know if there's any interest in this. So after you've done that, get out of YouTube and get started.